The European Climate Service says it's now virtually certain that 2024 will be the world's warmest year on record.
It will be very hard to see this long sequence of record-breaking temperature that we have seen over the last few months and years without taking into account the constant increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Global average temperatures are on track to end up more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That would make 2024 the first calendar year to reach that mark. The high temperatures mainly caused by human-caused climate change and natural factors like the El Nino weather pattern. With me now to discuss is Paul Beckwith. He's a climate system scientist. Paul, good morning, and thanks so much for being with us. So just anecdotally, I think a lot of people here, in southern Ontario would say, I'm not surprised it's been all that warm when you look at the fall we've had. That is just a sampling of what we've been experiencing the past couple of weeks. But now it looks like the data is showing that we have reached a new milestone in global warming. How did we get here?
Yes, it's certainly been a very, very warm fall for us. I'm in Ottawa and, record high temperatures. And I just removed a tick from myself yesterday. I thought the season was long gone. So according to Copernicus, we're going to be expecting 1.55 or even 1.6 even for the global average temperature for calendar year 2024. We've had several months, like, for example, December 2023 and February this year, 2024, when the monthly average temperature was pushing 1.75 degrees Celsius. So we're extremely warm. Of course, that means there's more water vapor in the atmosphere, there's more energy in the atmosphere, there's more extreme weather events.
So a lot of people might be familiar with this 1.5 degree mark. I'm wondering then, when I think about the Paris Accord, does that mean that the Paris Agreement failed? I mean, what are the factors that have led to this, or what are the things that haven't been done in order to make this year so warm? And we're basically beating last year, which was also a new record, 2023.
Yeah, so I was in Paris at that COP in 2015 for the Paris Agreement, and the aspiration was to keep global average temperatures below 1.5 above pre-industrial. The main target was 2 degrees Celsius in that climate conference. But, since 2015, and I'm actually off to COP 29 in Baku, Azerbaijan later on today, as it turns out. So, basically, if you look at greenhouse gas emissions, if you look at global emissions from industry, if you look at the land use change, we're getting rid of forests and planting things, so we're changing the sinks of carbon, we're changing the sources of carbon, and greenhouse gases are rising at accelerating rates. And we're actually at record level rates of subsidies globally to fossil fuel companies. So we're just heading the completely opposite direction to where we need to go to have any chance of meeting any of these climate targets, unfortunately.
So how scary is it then when you hear President-elect Trump calling climate, global warming a hoax or a green scam, and there are beliefs that he will try to pull out of the Paris Agreement? How frightening is that, not just for the U.S., but really for the world?
Yeah, it's definitely a big setback, and I think there'll be lots of discussions as to what countries can do at the at the COP 29. It's a bit dystopian, I think, because Trump has an advisor like Elon Musk, who's technically he's one of the best scientists and engineers, and he must certainly understand the risks and dangers from climate change. Right? He started an electric car company.
Yeah.
He wants to go to the moon. He knows what's going on. So I don't know if Trump is going to listen to people like that and actually, do things. I mean, I guess the hope with Trump, if his tariffs and his deportation of 12 million people craters the economy in the U.S., then emissions will go down if we end up having a recession or depression in the U.S. as a
boy.
result of Trump's policies. So, I mean, that would be bad for us, but it would be good for the climate, right? Because it would lower emissions. So we don't, there's a lot of, our crystal balls are very opaque right at the moment, especially given the US election, I think. But, the climate is we can't ignore it because it's going to hit our global food supply probably within 5, 10, 15 years. Already crops are becoming much more difficult to grow. We're getting water where we don't want water. We're not getting it where we need it over crops. When it comes down, it's in torrential rainfalls, which then just, runs off the land surface and floods. It doesn't replenish groundwater, right? It just runs off. It's coming down so quickly. I mean, just look at Spain recently. About half the U.S. is in severe drought right now. It's ongoing and it's worsening. So, and there's groups like NOAA who have drought monitor data, and this data is presented real time on the internet. So a big concern is if Trump actually follows through on some of his promises to kill groups like NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, we're going to have trouble getting climate data on the U.S., what's happening in the U.S. But there's places like Copernicus, and there's many good places around the world where we'll have to lean more heavily on if we lose the access to climate data. Yeah.
Paul, well, this was a sobering conversation. Paul Beckwith, appreciate you being with us today. He is a climate system scientist.